Gia North's lungs ached as she tore through the trees. The woods pushed in around her, hiding the cabins and Camp Lost Lake Lodge from view. It felt like she was in the middle of nowhere. It's not too late. It can't be too late, she thought, willing her short legs to move faster. The muscles in her calves screamed. She leapt from the grass to the hard-packed earth of the trail. Her foot slipped out from beneath her. She felt a sharp crack through her chin and tasted dirt in her mouth before she even realized she'd fallen. It was the worst possible time to trip. She pushed herself off the ground, catching sight of her hands as she did. They were splayed in the dirt, and her fingers, her knuckles, her wrists, every inch of visible skin was covered in blood. "Get up," she told herself, her voice ragged. "Get up, Gia." She was tired and panicked and terrified, but lives depended on whether or not she found help. She stood. Gia, breathing hard, noticed her camera on the ground. It had fallen out of her pocket and skidded across the path. That camera was probably the most important possession she had right now. The police would want to see the footage she'd just taken. She needed to put it back in its hiding place where she could get to it later. She glanced over her shoulder, into the woods she'd just run through. Did she have time for that? Making a quick decision, Gia snatched her camera off the ground and stuffed it back into her pocket, hurrying to her hiding place, past the trees and up the stairs to the camp director's office, stopping at the window. Hands shaking, she removed the faulty piece of trim no one but her knew about, pulled the camera out of her pocket, and stowed it in the little hole in the siding, then slid the trim back in place. She exhaled, relief flooding through her. There. At least that was done. She had started to turn back toward the stairs when she noticed something lying at her feet. It was the camp key card she'd been carrying around for the last 2 days. It must have also fallen out of her pocket when she pulled the camera out again. She leaned over to pick it up and froze. From where she was standing, she could see all the way across to the archery range. It was starting to get dark, but she could just make out the shapes of 2 figures standing in the field. She was about to lift her arms to call out to them for help, but something stopped her. Were they arguing? Gia squinted, trying to see who they were. That was the blonde hair and tall, broad-shouldered build of Jacob Knight, the camp's archery instructor, but she couldn't tell who the other person was. They were slender and shorter than Jacob, probably a woman, Gia thought. But there was something wrong with her face. It looked misshapen, old, haggard, with green-tinted skin and long, stringy gray hair, and her eyes were black, sunken, surrounded by deeply lined, rubbery skin, her nose long, hooked, covered in warts. A mask, Gia realized. The woman's face looked so messed up because she was wearing a mask. As Gia watched from her perch outside the office, the woman in the mask plucked an arrow out of the nearest target and lunged for Jacob, stabbing him through the throat. Jacob grabbed at the arrow protruding from his neck, blood spurting through his fingers. A spasm jerked through him. He fell to his knees in the dirt. A moment later, his body crumpled to the ground. Gia released a choked scream. She pressed her hands over her mouth to muffle the sound, but she was a beat too late. Her voice was already echoing through the woods. And now, the woman was lifting her head. She was looking right at Gia. No, Gia thought. She turned, grabbing for the office door. Her hands were shaking badly, still slick with blood, and it took her 2 tries to get the knob to turn. Before she could throw the door open, Gia glanced over her shoulder. The woman had picked up a bow from the ground and loaded an arrow. She aimed. The air whistled as the arrow flew, with perfect aim, at Gia's face.